And welcome into the Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday, August 2nd, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out as football season for both the NCAA and NFL start. You can reach them at 408-252-7262, as well as get them on the web at www.britanniaarmsdianza.com. All the English, all the British food and restaurant type food, British type food, all the sports you have, all the alcohol you have, everything you need. Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub, serving since 1981. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast every Monday, Thursdays and Fridays, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 1 o'clock, Facebook and YouTube Live. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live for joining us. We're a few minutes late, so bear with us here a little bit. Some news and other stuff going on behind the scenes. Download, subscribe, rate, and review anywhere you get your podcast. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, right, coming up in 30 minutes, actually, since we're running a little late. 30 minutes, we'll have all the college football. Week 1 starts this week, even though we had college football last week and it was week 0, which somebody will still have to explain to me. But I know mathematically what it means, but it doesn't make any sense for football. Anyway, college football at the bottom of the hour. We'll break down the games that start today. There's Big Ten is going in conference games. They're starting with conference games. And then there's others to talk about amongst all the other power conferences and some of the bigger minor conferences, non-power conferences, I guess the best way to put it. You can reach us at V Party Sports on Twitter, at V Party Sports on Instagram, MTMAR Podcast, Make the Money and Run. We have a Make the Money and Run Facebook group page as well, too. Charlie and I have Facebook and Instagram as well, too. We'll have our early picks at the end of the show today for the late afternoon games, and then by 6 o'clock Eastern, we will have the updates on all the pitching lines and everything going on, Major League Baseball, college football, and have our later picks at 6 Eastern. All right, Charlie, all the bills paid. How are you?
Hey, listen, I'll be better when my bangers and mash and Bass Ale gets here for my English breakfast from Britannia Arms. So I'll be much happier. I'm waiting for my DoorDash to get here.
All right. Well, I'll get to Mike and Tommy on that, and we'll see how fast it's going to get. All right, let's start off with we said we're going to get to college football in 30 minutes. So let's start off with baseball. We've got 5 weeks left. Today is September 2nd. 5 weeks left in Major League Baseball for the regular season. The Los Angeles Dodgers and San Francisco Giants, obviously the big news in Major League Baseball. Maybe not that big on the East, but it's pretty big considering the race itself. They are tied for first now. After all year, the Giants, the last time they were out of first place, the San Francisco Giants, May 30th, Memorial Day weekend, the last time that they were out of first place. The Dodgers, who swept the Atlanta Braves in 3 straight with another comeback win last night, 4-3 over Atlanta late. And the Giants have lost 3 straight to the Milwaukee Brewers, and they'll have a 4th game today on YouTube. It's not on local TV. It's not on national TV. It's on YouTube, so you have to figure out how to stream it or cast it or do whatever you can. But it's a big series. Logan Webb and Eric Lauer going in that game. Giants have lost 4 in a row. They are tied for first place in the loss column, even though they're a half game back in the standings and in second place technically. After today, they'll either be tied or they will be in second place, 1 game back in the loss column. The Brewers, speaking of the Brewers, 3 in a row against the Giants. They are rolling. They are cruising 11 up over the Reds in the Central Division. We talked about the Braves, up 2 on Philadelphia now and up 5 on the Mets after the loss and the sweep to the Dodgers in Los Angeles. They're going to Colorado for 4 starting tonight. The wild card scenario, Cincinnati, San Diego tied in the loss column, even though San Diego's a half game ahead. Philadelphia only 1 back now. St. Louis is 1 back. And the Mets, believe it or not, the Mets, thumbs up or thumbs down, they're only 4 back now in the wild card. Without DeGrom, without any hitting. Here the Mets are. I mean,
without a general manager.
Yeah, without a general manager now. Yeah, unfortunately, if you didn't hear that story, that we'll mention it, but that's not the show that we do. But it's very interesting. So let me start with this, Charlie. Obviously, Dodgers Giants. We live out here. I'm a Dodgers fan. We don't need to beat that to a dead horse. We knew it was going to be a close race going in the National League West, going in, but here they are, tied for first in the loss column. Giants on the downward trend, Dodgers on the upward trend. Their pitching's been outstanding. The relief pitching for LA, which was a question mark coming in, has been outstanding these last 3 weeks. And to beat Atlanta, even though they're at home and they have the advantage, to still sweep Atlanta like that and in comeback fashion the last 2 days, it's pretty impressive on how LA is getting through right now.
Well, from a wagering standpoint, Vasu, let's talk about what's happening, because from a wagering standpoint, the sports books have never wavered about the Dodgers being the favorites all the way along to win everything. They've always had the Dodgers as the favorites. And we've kind of looked at it and said, man, why? The Giants are there. Everything else is there. Why are they not wavering? And as a matter of fact, after the trades and everything else, they improved. The last time I looked, they were still plus 275, which was the best in all of baseball with their odds to win the World Championship. And now we're seeing, those guys in Vegas, they just kind of know what they're doing,
and that's down from plus 300.
Yeah. And here they come, here they come. I mean, we knew they were good. We knew they added a lot of talent at the trade deadline, but the Giants have been playing so well, but now things are happening to the Giants that some of which they can control, some of which they can't. And there they are. They've been standing at the doorstep. They never gave up. And now they're doing exactly what a good team does. They're taking advantage of the situation, and they beat up on a great team in Atlanta. If you don't think they're a great team, ask the Giants, because the Giants went to Atlanta and got beat up by the Braves. So the Dodgers right now playing very opportunistic baseball, and they're starting to say, hey, we're the favorites, and here's why.
Let's look at the Giants' perspective now. They're definitely on the trend down. They've lost 4 in a row, their first 4-game losing streak all year. When they lost on Tuesday night, it was only their second 3-game losing streak all year. Could it be dead arms? They only had 60 games last year. Some of these starters did not have a big year last year with Alex Wood, who's on COVID now. They're going to have to replace him. Johnny Cueto just went on the 10-day IL. He had a potential COVID situation, but the IL scenario is that he's got a strained elbow or a strained arm or something, that he's on the IL. Kevin Gossman pitched okay yesterday. Giants didn't hit in the clutch, 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position. Your guy here, Vasu, had the over 8. Milwaukee had second and third, nobody out in the top of the 9th inning. Couldn't push across at least one for the push, but had the Dodgers and had the St. Louis Cardinals in game 1, and the Mariners and Astros under. So it was a good day overall. But last night would have been great with that over coming through on the Brewers. But the Giants, going back to the Giants, and we'll hit the Brewers in a second because they're playing really well. But the Giants right now trending down. They've added arms. They've got Jose Quintana off waivers. They picked him up from the Angels. They've got another left-hander now to go with Tony Watson, who's been pretty effective. Overall, they've been effective, and it's not like they're in last place, or this is like the worst team ever because you lost the Super Bowl type of situation. They're still there, and they're even. And now after today, the Dodgers have the day off today. After today, they'll have played the same number of games, and here we go, 3.5 weeks. Oh, and by the way, the Dodgers are coming into San Francisco this weekend where they swept earlier. So go figure on that. If the Giants can win and this thing gets even, completely even for the weekend, what a 3-game series this will be, capped off on Sunday Night Baseball.
Yeah, it's a delicious scenario. I mean, Major League Baseball could not have written it any better. You've got the Giants falling out of first place for the first time in 77 days. You've got the Dodgers on the upswing. And oh, by the way, they just happen to have a 3-game series this weekend with Sunday Night Baseball featuring them as the team on Sunday night. So, I mean, sometimes everything comes together, and this weekend it is. And it's really a key series because it's divisional baseball. You got 2 teams fighting it out, and every one of these games is going to count. And part of what's happening to the Giants, they can't control. But Vasu, we talked about it, and we've talked about it all season long. We've kind of looked at this pitching staff with the Giants, and you've kind of felt like it was duct tape and super glue holding them together because they didn't seem that strong going in. And we've talked about being reticent about saying too much because we didn't know how they were going to do on the back end. And Johnny Cueto's health has always been a concern for the Giants ever since they signed him to that ridiculously long contract that has been an albatross around their neck ever since they signed him. And now here they are in a place where he's pitched pretty well this season, and now they need him down the stretch, and he's on the 10-day IL with what now they're calling an elbow strain. So they're a team right now that they need somebody to step up because they may be in a position where they're going to have to be throwing some bullpen games in order to stay into this thing. And not that can't be done. I mean, Tampa Bay proves that you can win a lot of games throwing bullpen, but I don't know whether they've got a bullpen that can pull together and do that. So we're just going to have to see what they can do. But right now, things are not, the trade winds are not blowing in the direction favorably of the Giants. And I'm not saying they're out. I'm not saying they're not going to lose. Obviously, they're going to make the playoffs. Will it be? But the question is, will they make it as the division winner, or will they be a wild card team? And if they are the wild card team, they will be the home team. I just don't see that any scenario where they won't be. But you want to win the division, and that's open to question now.
Going into last night, the wild card leader, which was the Dodgers before today, or actually they're both tied for first, so they're both the division winner and the wild card leader. They're 13 games up on the number 2, 12 games up on the number 2 seed in the wild card. So it's going to be very hard for Cincinnati or San Diego, St. Louis, Philadelphia, those teams in the wild card races to catch them up. And then if you're in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th spot, you're not going to catch them up. You're not going to catch that wild card anyway, the number 1 wild card anyway. So it's either going to be the Dodgers or Giants. Let's take a look at the Giants real quick here in terms of the scheduling. Yeah, they're going to go into the Dodgers series. It's the very important point here to be known is that since both teams are going to make the playoffs, they do not use a game 163 in this scenario. So both teams will be in the playoffs. They'll go by head-to-head record. And the head-to-head record right now, they've already played 16 times. It's the last 3 games of the year between the Dodgers and Giants. They'll have 3 left to get to the 19 games that you play within your division. The winner of the series, if they're tied at the end of the year, will win the division, and the second place and the loser of the head-to-head matchup. Let me spit that out here. The loser of the head-to-head matchup will be the wild card team in the division, and they will host the wild card, either Cincinnati, San Diego, or whoever comes in that second wild card. So the winner in the head-to-head series will be the division winner. The loser of the head-to-head series will be the wild card. That's the scenario that goes on. So these 3 games are not only important for division standing, but they're also important for wild card status, because it's only a 1-game wild card this year as opposed to last year, and starting as a division in a division series versus a wild card game. All right, so that's the scenario in the National League West. Vasu Vadaparty, Charlie O here. By the way, you keep track of the National League games, not a big slate at the bottom on the ticker. 3 games going, San Francisco, Milwaukee on YouTube at 3:45. The Cubs and Pirates at 8 o'clock with Thompson and Keller. Atlanta going to Colorado. That's a 8:40, I believe, a game at Colorado. Tuki Toussaint and Chichi Gonzalez going for the Rockies after leaving LA and going to Colorado. I got a feeling the Braves are going to score a ton of runs this weekend in Colorado, and they may end up separating themselves in the East. But let's take a look at the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't have their record in front of me, but the Milwaukee Brewers are only 4 games back of the National League West. The National League West, the Dodgers and Giants have the best record in baseball. The Dodgers have 1 more win, obviously, but they've got the day off today. So we'll see how that goes. But they are only 4 games back in the race for the best record in the National League, Charlie. The East, they're not going to catch the East. I think they're 12 games back in terms of best record. The Milwaukee Brewers, very understated. How you doing, Janine, by the way? Thanks on Facebook. I know you're watching us from Milwaukee, Janine and David, both on Facebook watching. But Milwaukee, the Central Division, they've locked it up. They're 11 up on the Reds right now. The Reds split a doubleheader yesterday. Milwaukee has gone into San Francisco and really beaten them up. Great pitching. Woodruff and Burns, 2 top 5 Cy Young Award candidates in the same rotation. Freddie Peralta is not even pitching in the series. He's the probably top 10 starter right now. And now they're going with Eric Lauer today. They went with Brett Anderson. They had to pull him after 2 innings after that near scary line drive that almost hit his head. Yeah, that was very
scary.
That was scary. It looked like it hit his shoulder, so it looked like he was okay in the dugout as well, too. So good for that scenario. The former Oakland A, we saw him a lot out here. But they were hitting the clutch. Lorenzo Cain has revamped his career, re-energized his career. He's hit home runs. He's got doubles. He scored the winning run. He's got, I think he had 2 stolen bases last night as well, too. And he really took over the game for a 36-year-old veteran outfielder who was kind of on the shelf. Jackie Bradley Jr. has not had a good year. Offensively, they have not had a good year. They acquired Eduardo Escobar from the Diamondbacks. He's got 21 home runs combined between Arizona and Milwaukee, but he's on the shelf right now. Rowdy Tellez, they got from Toronto. He's helped. He had a big triple the other night. Their bullpen looks like they've got Devin Williams back. Looks like they've got Josh Hader back in full strength. They are awesome, as you know. I think before last night, Josh Hader, he walked one guy in the 9th inning, but Josh Hader has only given up 22 hits in 50 innings this year, and I think he's struck out 89 guys in 50 innings as well, too. So you're talking about dominant. That's Rivera-like numbers from that, and it's basically one pitch for him, too. That's that hard, funky motion that he has and that hard fastball at 99 to 100 miles an hour that comes in, and he's a little gangly guy like Rivera was, too. But talk about the job Craig Counsell has done for Milwaukee. They are cruising. Do you think, and we've been around sports a long time, and I see this, and I think you probably agree with me on this part of it. We'll see after I ask the question, but the Milwaukee Brewers seem like that they are cruising to the point where they can take more chances, and they don't have to push their players as hard right now. So if you get somebody hot in the bullpen, you end up not using them, you could probably give them a day off the next day as well, too, because they didn't have to go to Devin Williams yesterday. They've got Boxberger. They've got other guys in that bullpen that are stepping up right now. And they can rest guys. And they're only 4 games back of this best record. Whether they're going for it or not, it seems like they were the more relaxed team because of the angst that's going on between the Dodgers and Giants in the NL West.
Yeah, Vasu, I think you're absolutely right. One of the things I think is a big advantage because of that, you pointed that out, is that not only can they rest guys, but they can also give guys experience. Guys that might not get used in some situations, because if you're being pushed, you can't take a chance. Now you can take guys that are you can take a little tougher situation and pull guys in and say, work this situation. So now you're giving them experience in a little tougher spots so that they're more game ready come playoff time. So now you've got deeper experience coming into the playoffs, and you can feel more comfortable about going to a guy, and you don't have such a short bullpen. You don't have such a short bench when it comes to those playoffs. But one of the things that just overwhelms me about this team, Vasu, is the fact that this team is 46-23 on the road. That is the best road record in all of the major leagues. This team is 36-29 at home. They're better on the road than they are at home. So even if they don't get home field advantage in the playoffs, they're not worried about that because they play great on the road. I mean, that speaks to me of a manager who's got control of his clubhouse. He's got these guys so loose that they don't care where they're playing. They just play baseball. Okay, so we got to go to Los Angeles. We don't care. We'll play. We got to go to New York. We don't care. We'll play. Go to Atlanta. Not a problem. And those kinds of things don't happen by accident. And you've got Craig Counsell there, who has been the manager for a while. Obviously, he's a player's kind of manager because he's had consistent success. You never hear a former player, have a bad thing to say about the guy. And so this team is in a position right now that teams dream about being in. They play great on the road. They've got some games ahead that they can get other players experience. As Red Barber used to say, right now, this team is in the catbird seat.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. The Milwaukee Brewers are 82-52. They've won 4 in a row. They're 7 of their last 10, and they are only 3 games back of the Giants and Dodgers in the loss column for the best record in baseball. The Giants 84-49 in second place, officially a half game back, but tied in the loss column. The Dodgers have 85 wins. Dodgers have the day off as well. One addition to the National League, the Miami Marlins, New York Mets are not on the board yet. Weather yesterday up in the Northeast, the Phillies and Washington were rained out. That game has been added as a write-in game. You'll see it at the bottom. Philadelphia with Aaron Nola and Paulo Espino going at 1 o'clock Eastern. Philadelphia 162 favorite over Washington. All right, let's hit the East before we hit the games, Charlie, as the ticker goes across on the bottom. We'll get that update for the Mets and Marlins by 6 o'clock for our picks on the later games tonight as well, too. All right, let's hit the East a little bit. Talked about the Braves. They just came out of Los Angeles. They're getting swept. They're not as talented as the Dodgers are. Their pitching was suspect going into the year. Their bullpen was suspect. They've lost Ronald Acuna for the year. They've had injuries, of course, the whole thing. Acuna being out at the All-Star break, of course, the whole year started with Marcell Ozuna, which we don't need to get into. They've had to patchwork in terms of their outfield. They've had great years from Freddie Freeman. Ozzy Albies, I think, has stepped up into superstar status. How about that home run? I don't know if you saw the highlight, but at night at Dodger Stadium to carry a ball out by Dansby Swanson to deep center field. That was a shot. He's impressed. Yep. He's a great shortstop. Austin Riley has turned himself into a terrific defensive player at third base. We knew he had the bat there. Their catching situation is pretty good right now, and their outfield, their starting pitching has been okay. They're going with Tuki Tucson, probably a bullpen game. It's Colorado. It's going to be a bullpen game anyway by the third or fourth inning anyway to begin with. But Max Fried has pitched well. He pitched well the other night. Who are the guys that they pitch? I can't remember the roster that they've had for the pitching staff, but they've had guys on that pitching staff that have pitched really well for them, both starting, and now Will Smith starting to come into his own in the bullpen. This last month, he's been pitching very well. In fact, I'm going to look up the Braves roster a little bit while you talk about the National League East. And then Philly's going to go in about 40 minutes against Washington at Washington. They've had a tough series with Washington, but they've won the first two games. I believe that they are on a winning streak, so they've won. Yeah, they've won five in a row. They've won five in a row. And so while you talk about the NL East, I'm going to look up the Atlanta Braves pitching staff here.
Well, the Braves have not done what they wanted to do when they went to Southern California. They've been playing so well at home, and now they've gone into SoCal and they've lost 3 in a row. So they really had the air come out of their momentum there, and that's not what they wanted to have happen, especially because now the Phillies have gone on a 5-game winning streak. And, you know, it's so hard to predict what the Phillies are going to do. The Phillies now just 2 games back in the loss column. I keep having a hard time believing in the Phillies, but they won't go away. You know, they're like that fly that gets caught inside your car and you keep rolling down all the windows, hoping you'll get sucked out and it won't go away. Well, that's kind of how I feel about the Phillies. You know, they're just a fly inside your car and you're going, they're going to get sucked away, but then you roll the windows back up and it's still there. So, you know, there's still a force to be dealt with. The Mets, you know, that whole organization to me feels like it's imploding. You know, the Javi Baez thing, gosh, did they make too much out of that? The guy was frustrated.
I think they did.
You know, just let it go.
Right.
You know, if they just ignored it, the fans got to boo, Javi got to do his thing. And it's not the first time it's happened. Let it go, it moves on. Now they make it a story. It's had a 72-hour run. It probably goes off now because of the unfortunate deal that's happening with their general manager or their acting general manager. Not that should overplay a thing.
Who took over for a general manager who already had issues with his texting and texting.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a mess. And, you know, front office stuff shouldn't make a difference. But when you got a team that's having problems, sometimes those things will carry over. So I think the Mets are such a hot mess. It's hard for me to see them not collapsing or continuing to collapse. I just, you know, I could be wrong, but I don't see them as players in the East. But the biggest thing, Vasu, when I look at the East, there's only one team that has a plus run differential in that whole division, and that is Atlanta at plus 88.
Right.
The Phillies are the next closest, and they have a -8 run differential.
Right.
At some point, somebody's got to score some runs, or you're not going to be competitive.
Well, at the beginning of the year, the Atlanta Braves were struggling, and then now they've picked up their offense almost since the All-Star break, maybe even the mid part of June, because at the beginning of the year, we were talking about the Miami Marlins in last place, who were the only team that were in plus run differential there. The Atlanta Braves pitching staff, as we close out the National League, Charlie Morton's 12-5, Max Fried 11-7, Drew Smiley's had a good year at 9-4. Ian Anderson is back off the injured list. He's 6-5. And Oscar Noah is 4-4. He pitched well against the Giants last week. They've got Will Smith closing. Tyler Matzik pitched well yesterday for the Braves. Luke Jackson, AJ Minter, Chris Martin. And they've got guys on that roster that have come in, including Jesse Chavez Edgar Santana, Richard Rodriguez from the Pirates has come in, has been somebody to look out for as well too. So the Braves, even though they had a tough stretch in Los Angeles, the Dodgers are a better team. That's the way it goes sometimes. But they're up 2 on Philly, 5 up on the Mets. Philly and St. Louis are 1 back in the wild card. The Mets are 4 back there. Cincinnati and San Diego tied in the loss column. You can check the baseball lines at the bottom. We're going to hit the American League. We're going to take 30 seconds and come back and talk American League baseball, as there are some races to talk about in the American League. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at 408-252-7262, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com as well. Back in 30 with the American League look. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday, September 2nd of 2021, week 1 of the NCAA football. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But right now, we just finished the National League up. Let's hit the American League scenarios as we've got going here, Charlie. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. You can catch us every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can download, subscribe, rate, and review anywhere you get your podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, we appreciate the support that we get from everybody, both on Facebook and Instagram. Make the Money and Run podcast group page that we have now on Facebook as well, too. All right, the American League line's going at the bottom. Like we said, there's only one game that's not on the board yet, and that's the Miami Marlins, New York Mets. Whether they were postponed, Philadelphia and Washington were postponed. We didn't have a line on Philadelphia, but now we do have one with Aaron Nola going against Paolo Espino. That game at 1:10 Eastern, about 35 minutes from now. All right, the American League. Tampa Bay lost to Boston yesterday. Chris Sale looked outstanding yesterday. Rasmussen pitched well for Tampa as well. 3-2 victory for the Red Sox last night. Their first of the 4-game series. They have one more today coming up. Tampa Bay still comfortable. They're 7 up on the Yankees. That win by Boston only brought them to 10 back right now. So those are the 3 teams in the American League East. I can't see Boston making a run at the American League East, and I don't think the Yankees still have enough. Tampa Bay, 84 wins in the American League, 84-49, believe it or not, 9 out of the last 10. The 9-game winning streak broke yesterday by Chris Sale, who looked outstanding and could be a factor come wild card time for the Red Sox coming down there. But the Tampa Bay Rays, Charlie, I mean, we keep saying, who are these guys? Who are these guys? We know who they are. Arozarena made a name in the playoffs. Wander Franco, the number 1 prospect, has played well for them at shortstop. They've got Brandon Lau, has 31 home runs. Austin Meadows is 3rd in the American League in RBIs. I mean, these guys are not household names, and yet here they are in first place, the best record, not only the best record in baseball, but by 7 games up on the White Sox, 6 games up on Houston for the best record, as the Astros are 78-55 and the White Sox are 78-56, and we'll hit the other division in a second. But the Tampa Bay Rays, Charlie, another week of amazing.
Let me run a few numbers for you, Vasu. First of all, they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. Okay. They are 43-24 at home. They're an incredible 41-25 on the road. Now, that is what you call consistency. And whenever you get consistency in baseball, as long as it's not losing,
right,
you are a dangerous club. They also are a plus 170 in run differential. They score runs. They win. They win on the road. This is a team that is playing incredible baseball, and they're a team that adapts to game situations. If it's time for one of their starters to go, okay, we'll do the starter. If we need to do a bullpen game, okay, we'll do a bullpen game. If we need to play small ball, today's small ball. If today's power ball, today we'll play power ball. I mean, they're like the ultimate chameleon of baseball. You don't know what team you're going to get on what day, but all you know is that you're going to get 110% every day out of the team. And that's what makes them so dangerous, because they just show up and play, and they are adaptable to whatever the situation is. And that's just crazy because you don't see teams be that adaptable in today's game because guys tend to be specialists. They tend to have this box and they fit in that box and they don't come out of that box. That's not the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays are just okay, you do this today, you do this, and that's what they do. And again, we've talked about it before because they play in Tampa. They just don't get the press. They don't get the national TV. But folks, this is a great team. And also, we are a wagering show. They are always a great wagering opportunity.
Yeah, they went into Philadelphia last week and swept the Phillies on the road. Mike Zunino has 27 home runs. His average is not great. The former Mariner, Yandy Diaz, playing first base. Brandon Lau, we said 31 home runs. Austin Meadows has 93 RBIs. That's top 5 in the American League. He's in left field. Kiermaier's a Gold Glove center fielder. Manuel Margot. They traded for Nelson Cruz at the All-Star break. Arozarena off the bench. I mean, they say he's off the bench, but he's really not. He's an outfielder. He starts every day for them. He's got 20. He's got 18 home runs, 24. This is by Baseball Reference. Francisco Mejia, a guy who's not well known as a backup catcher, he hits a big 3-run home run off Phillies closer 2 weeks ago for a 3-run home run. He's hitting what's he hitting? I saw his number here. He's hitting 264. He's got 6 home runs from the backup catcher spot. They've got guys on here that you never heard of. Brett Phillips, G-Man Choi. Brosseau is injured right now. Willie Adames. They traded Willie Adames. They let Blake Snell go, and yet here they are at 84 and 42 or 84 and 49 going into the last 3.5 weeks of the season. So look out for the Tampa Bay Rays. No doubt in my mind. And don't forget, by the way, they're the defending American League champions, even though it was a 60-game season. They may end up getting back to the World Series with a whole different roster than they had. Well, I shouldn't say a whole different roster, but they did let Blake Snell go. They did trade Adames, and they did move on, and they did get Nelson Cruz in the middle of the season as well too. So they've got Boston for Game 4 of that 4-game series. They can really put Boston down and out in the American League East. The Yankees, 7 back in the East. They lead the wild card right now. They're 2 games up, I believe. 2 games up on the 3 games up in the loss column on the Red Sox for the number 1 and number 2 spots. Oakland is 1 game back of Boston. Seattle and Toronto are only 3 games back in the wild card. And Cleveland, who's won 3 in a row, they've won 2 out of 3 in Kansas City. They've got 1 more. Actually, they split in Kansas City. They've got 1 more against the Royals this evening, and they're putting themselves right back in it too. They're 5 back in the wild card and only 7 back in the American League Central of the White Sox, though we think the White Sox are still going to win the division. But the wild card scenario right now, Charlie, Yankees up by 2, up by 3 on Boston. Boston up by 1, 3 on Seattle and Toronto. Cleveland 5 in the wild card scenario. Your thoughts?
Well, there's 2 things. I'm not sure that it's going to wind up being the Yankees and Boston being the wild card, but I'm also not sure that it's going to wind up being Oakland. And again, I bow to my partner. The team that I'm watching now with just glee and enjoying the heck out of it, and they keep burning me, so I'm not going against them anymore. It's the Seattle Mariners. These guys have had a tradition of going away, just having the second half of the season fade, and they're not doing that. As a matter of fact, in honor of that, they promoted their general manager to president of baseball operations, and they gave their manager an extension. So they are very happy with what's happening up there. And I'll tell you, Vasu, if they have a good month of September, I would not be amazed to see them in a wild card game because the A's are in trouble. They're not being able to be consistent right now. And I think starting pitching is going to be a problem for them the rest of the way down throughout the month of September. And unless they can find some way to be consistent or get that bullpen to start being consistent for them, I wouldn't be surprised at all to Seattle become a player for that second wild card spot.
Seattle, by the way, had Houston in town. They beat them 2 out of 3. Again, Logan Gilbert yesterday, a 1-0 victory, 7 innings. The bullpen shut down the Astros in that offense, plus 172 run differential, held them to 0. 1-0 game, great game pitched by Logan Gilbert. He's a name to keep track of in the future. The A's had a big lead yesterday. They ended up losing to the Detroit Tigers. Frankie Montas, you see at the bottom there on the ticker as the lines go by. $1.95 favorite at Detroit. That's a heavy line to go up against the Detroit Tigers and Matt Manning, especially the way the Tigers offense came through. And the bullpen did not pitch well. I didn't see the end of it. Oakland only 3-7 in their last 10. The Astros not that great, 5-5. So they've only lost a couple of games in the last 10 games, but they're 5 back in the loss column. They've still got a shot. They've got the Astros, I think, 1 or 2 more times before the end of the year. Seattle 7 back in the American League West. That's kind of on the fringe, but like we said, they're only 3 back in the wild card. And I think Seattle's better than Boston right now. I think their pitching is really good. I'm looking at the roster right now. Tom Murphy, again, names you don't know, just like Tampa Bay. The only difference is they're playing in the division with the Astros right now. And the Yankees and Red Sox got off to a horrible start, but Tampa Bay gets all the credit for that division coming off. Ty France has had a good year, the former Padre. He's hit 16 home runs for them. Mitch Haniger, comeback player of the year, 29 home runs. Usually he's been injured the last couple of years, second half of the year, 29 home runs for Mitch Haniger. Kyle Seager is hitting Corey Seager's brother. May not be well known up in Seattle, but he's a veteran third baseman, 10-plus years, 31 home runs for Kyle Seager this year. How about that? And then Jared Kellnick, their young superstar, came up with Logan Gilbert on that same day. And Luis Torrens, their backup catcher, playing DH. He's starting every day, both against right-handers and left-handers. Jake Bowers in the outfield. Toro, they got from the Astros, hit the grand slam the other night against his old team. Cal Raleigh is a backup catcher. They've got guys on this team, and this isn't even guys that aren't even on the injured list. Evan White was a Gold Glove first baseman for them last year. And I'm looking down the roster here. Their pitching staff has been really good. Chris Flexen came from Korea last year. He was a former Mets product, couldn't get people out. And then all of a sudden he worked in South Korea on something, a changeup or a slider or something that he's worked at. 11-5 for the Mariners. Nobody else has 10 wins on that staff. Kikuchi 7-7. He won the other night. Gonzalez 6-5 coming off injury. Logan Gilbert came up in the middle of June, 5-5 now. That great win yesterday. Sheffield on the injured list. Justice Dunn on the injured list. Steckenrider out of the bullpen. Kendall Graveman is gone. They traded him to Houston, so they're not even using him. Paul Sewald is getting their final 3 outs of the ball game. I mean, these are names that people do not know. They've got Tyler Anderson going today for Seattle, or tomorrow for Seattle when they play again. But it's a very funny situation about the Seattle Mariners, Charlie.
Yeah, and Vasso, I just brought up their schedule for the remainder of the season. They have these 3 games at home with Arizona. Guess who their next home opponent is?
Is the A's or the the Boston Red Sox. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Their only visit. That's going to be huge.
So that becomes huge because then they can help control their own destiny in that wild card situation. Then they go to Kansas City for 3. They have 6 games remaining with the A's. They have 4 in Oakland. They have 2 at home. And then they have 6 games with the Angels. Now, you figure you got 2 starts with Ohtani in there, so that's going to be tough. But then you got 4 with the Angels, which means you got 4 games that are winnable.
Right.
So you've got a pretty favorable schedule, and then a schedule to take advantage of with Boston there coming up. So that's a pretty good lean. The Mariners can control a lot of their own fate trying to make that second wildcard position.
All right, as we wrap up the American League here, Houston with a 5-game lead over Oakland. We talked about the American League East. Tampa Bay has a 7-game lead, pretty comfortable right now. 1 more game against Boston. Let's hit the White Sox for a second. They're 8 up on Cleveland. Lucas Giolito got hurt the other night. I don't know if he's going to make his next start. Lance Lynn is on the 10-day IL. Indians have won 3 in a row. The White Sox had the Pirates. They won 3 in a row as well, too. They're 8 up, even though it says 10 back and the game's back. The Indians have only played 130 games. The White Sox have played 134. They're only 8 back are the Indians. We like the White Sox. We like them to win the division. They've had a good year, Charlie. But give me your take on the White Sox and how they're kind of going through these last 10 games. They're only 6-4 in these last 10 games against teams that were beatable, and now their pitching staff a little shaky going into these final 3.5, 4 weeks.
Well, we talked about it several weeks ago that when you get that big a lead, there's always that danger of a little bit of a let up. And now you've got a little bit of a let up and you've got some injury bugs there. I'm still not worried because I think Tony La Russa's experience will keep that team together. They're not going to lose the Central. I think the biggest thing is, how is their win total going to come out, and where are they going to be in the playoffs? Are they going to have to start out on the road? Are they going to be at home? What is that situation going to be like? But I'm not really worried about the White Sox. I think the biggest thing is that, can they start to build the momentum back up, especially in the second half of September, to kind of get that edge back to really be ready to go for the playoffs. I think that's the thing that I'm looking for, is in those last 10 to 14 games, really to get that edge back to be ready to jump right into the playoffs.
White Sox go to Kansas City this weekend. Dallas Keuchel will get the start against an unnamed starter for Kansas City starting tomorrow night. Kansas City has given them tough times over the years, and you can be sure that they'll be ready for Dallas Keuchel. They beat him up last time pretty good when the White Sox hosted the Royals a couple of weeks ago, but they are one game back in the loss column of Houston for the number 2 spot, and they're 7 back of the Tampa Bay Rays for the top spot in the American League. They probably will end up in the second. I mean, they will end up in the second or third spot unless Tampa Bay falters. It looks like Tampa Bay is going to end up with the best record with 3.5 to go. I can't see Tampa Bay giving up a 6-game lead and a 7-game lead to Houston and Chicago. But, stranger things have happened. So a few games in the American League tonight. Oakland at Detroit. That's going to be in about a half an hour. Tampa Bay hosting Boston. That's tonight with McClanahan, Rodriguez. Kansas City will have one more against Cleveland with Tristan McKenzie and Mike Minor going up. So that's going to do it for the American League. That's going to do it for the baseball side. College football back in town. Week 1 coming up. We're going to hit all the power conferences. We got all the Thursday lines tomorrow on the Friday football segment as part of the Make the Money and Run podcast at 1 Eastern on Facebook and YouTube Live. We'll have all the Friday football action, Friday football show for Saturday, as well as Friday night. There's still Friday night games. We're going to have college football Friday night. Good games this weekend to start the Big Ten playing conference games as well. So in 30 seconds, we will hit the NCAA this weekend and maybe talk a little NFL before we get out of here. Vasi Vadaparty, Charlie O. This is Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Back in 30 with the college football outlook. Welcome back. Vasi Vadaparty, Charlie O here, the Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. On Friday, we're going to concentrate more on football. We'll have some baseball talk with these last 3.5 weeks and the playoffs that are coming through in the next month or so. We're also going to have intern Nick Robinson back with us as well, too. He's going to give us his take on player props and different scenarios in terms of wagering that his unique status has.
He's great at those player props.
And he's very good at that too. So he'll be on with us the last segment every Friday at 1:45 Eastern, 10:45 on the West Coast. So make sure you miss that if you want to look for another angle on wagering. He's your guy to go to, intern Nick Robinson, tomorrow and every Friday through the rest of football season as we get going. All right, we're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com at 408-252-7262. 252-7262. All right, welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Let's hit the college football scenarios. I had Yogi Roth on the other interview show the other day, Charlie. We were talking about college football, the NILs, and everything going on with it. But right now, we wanted to get into the college football and the nitty-gritty. We've already had one full week of college football, 5 games last week. I gave you Nebraska, I gave you Illinois +7, and I gave you UCLA -17.5. So I'm off to a good start, 2-0 in the NCAA. These are the teams that are still under +1,000. We don't want to go through all 118 teams or how many teams there are in college football, but
4,312.
Right. You can get them all. You can get them all at any website. But Alabama +225, Clemson at plus 400. Both those two teams have big games this weekend on neutral sites. Georgia and Ohio State are plus 600, and Oklahoma 700. And then you get to teams like Oregon, and you get to other power conferences who are in the plus 1200s, plus 1500s, plus 1700s. We talked about the NCAA and the Power Fives. Charlie, the ACC, Clemson. I like UNC as kind of a surprise in the ACC to challenge Clemson. They don't play each other in the regular season, so maybe they'll get there in the championship game. But I like Mac Brown and UNC. Big Ten, it seems to be Ohio State. Penn State, Wisconsin have a big game this weekend. I really, really like Penn State. And I think if Penn State has some things break the right way, they can challenge Ohio State. I'm not sold on as much on Wisconsin right now. Oklahoma and Texas, we know they're leaving the SEC. Yogi and I were talking about on Monday how interesting those games are going to be with Oklahoma and Texas. It's going to be those other teams' Super Bowls, knowing they're leaving in a few years. Iowa State's a very senior-laden team with Brock Purdy. I like them as not only as an upstart, but maybe a chance to upset Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler having a good year so far as a freshman at Oklahoma. Alabama, of course. I mean, who else in the SEC? Georgia, yeah. If you had to pick a second team, Georgia. And then in the Pac-12, I like USC and UCLA in the Pac-12, even though Oregon, I still think, and Yogi still thinks Stanford, Yogi Roth, the Pac-12 network analyst, still thinks that Stanford's in the mix there as far as the North Division for Oregon. Take a few minutes, Charlie, and talk about the Power Fives right here and what you see going in overall.
Well, I don't disagree with anything that you really said. I'm really interested to see this year one of the conferences I'm watching, and not just because I live on the West Coast, but I'm really interested to watch the Pac-12 because I really have felt like the Pac-12 has been on the verge of dropping out of the Power Five. I really feel like there's been we've about to see the Power Four, and that the Pac-12 really needs to reestablish itself in order to stay a part of what is the Power Five. And I think that we may see a resurgence this year. I like UCLA. I think that Chip Kelly may be finally starting to earn his money in that huge contract that he got there. USC looks like they are going to continue putting together the big start that they had from last season. Stanford, I'd like to see Stanford just do well because they're in my backyard, and I've always followed them, and I like to see them do well. I don't know yet. I don't know enough about this club yet. I've been just starting to look at them, whether or not they really have that competitiveness or not. I know in the coaches poll, they have them kind of bubbling under the top 25. I still think Oregon is the team to beat there, but I think there's going to be some movement in that Pac-12. I was really impressed with what UCLA did with Hawaii, and I want to thank Chip Kelly for throttling the offense back so that I stayed under the 68.5 that weekend, because the way they came out in that first half, I said, they are going to so blow by that 68.5. I will never win this game. So, Chip, I know you didn't do it specifically for us, but we thank you.
No doubt. It's going to be interesting to see how they come up with LSU. LSU not highly rated in the SEC. They are right there in the top 3 or 4 as far as the SEC goes, but they're going to have a home game. They're a home underdog coming into it. But the Pac-12, again, our conversation with Yogi Roth on Monday, it was an interesting conversation. He thinks every team is going to be right up there in the Pac-12 and everything that's going on with the alliances. He thinks Arizona State has 14 players that could be drafted this year. He thinks every team, Washington's very underrated. They got shut down by COVID last year. Stanford still could have a move. David Shaw's a great coach. They're going to Kansas State early in the morning on the Central Time. I forget if they're on ESPN or FS1 on Saturday morning, but Stanford, Kansas State.
I think that's a Fox game.
Okay, FS1, because the Fox game's Penn State, Wisconsin. That okay. I can tell you, Penn State, Wisconsin. So FS1.
I can tell you that it's ESPN radio because I have to get up early. So
okay, so Stanford, Kansas State, a big one, and we'll hit all those games on Saturday. But let's hit the Pac-12 games today. Utah 28.5 point spread against Weber State. 49 the total. Weber State. 28.5. Utah's very good. Their defense, they played well last year, Charlie. And then ASU 45. San Jose State saw Southern Utah last week. 45 is the point spread. They've got all these pro prospects, according to Yogi and according to all the publications I've read. Herm Edwards, they've had their little controversy during spring practice and everything that went on. 45 points. But the funny thing, when you're 45-point favorite and your total is only 55, that they've got to tell me that their defense either is very good or they just don't think Southern Utah is going to do anything. Southern Utah only got 14 points against San Jose State. San Jose State was a 28.5-point favorite last weekend over Southern Utah. So we'll get to all the Pac-12 games, but right now, what do you think about Utah and what do you think about Arizona State? Just not so much in these games. We know they're going to win, but overall, just the early preview for them.
Well, I've been impressed with what Utah has been building as a program within the Pac-12 for the last several years. I mean, we tend not to hear much about them because they sit in the backyard of BYU, and so they get overshadowed. But they have been building a program that has been consistently good in the Pac-12. They just haven't been able to bubble up and become a champion, which I think would then get a lot of spotlight on them. But you're right. That's a very good program. And I think that people should watch them because I think they're going to become a good wager team throughout the course of the season. So you're going to want to watch the Utes because they play good football. Herm Edwards, Herm's my guy. Okay. So even though I don't have anything that I love a whole lot in Arizona. There's two things that I love in Arizona right now. My grandson just moved to Phoenix and is at Grand Canyon University. And that's my hat right there. So I'm now rooting for the Lopes when it comes to basketball. They don't have a football team. So I love my grandson who's in Phoenix. And I love Herm Edwards. So nobody wants Herm to do better than I do. And I felt like all along, if people would just get on board with him, that he can build a program. And I am so thrilled that it looks like this could be the year where Herm's program and work and hard, because nobody outworks Herm Edwards. Nobody. And I think that this could be the year where they bubble up. And I think it'd be great to see Arizona State burst back on the national scene. And I think that could be a big part of helping the Pac-12 become a true Power 5 conference, if you will. I think they need to be there for that to happen. I think in the South, you need Arizona State, you need USC, and you need UCLA to be there for that to happen.
All right, moving on to the ACC. One game tonight in the ACC. South Florida is going to travel to Raleigh to North Carolina State, 19-point spread, 58. Not a lot to talk about in the ACC. It's Clemson. I think UNC is probably the second best team. We said that. North Carolina State, very underrated program, though. And South Florida had some good matchups last year. 19 points might be a lot to talk about here, Charlie. So just take a minute on the ACC, what you're looking at.
Well,
and we'll hit the full preview tomorrow of the ACC.
Yeah, it's Clemson and everybody else, but I like this North Carolina team. They've been building there again. This is, it's always tough when you're at a basketball school to all of a sudden say, hey, they got a football program, and people go, they do, and that's kind of what they're doing there. But they're building a good football program. They also have a terrific baseball program there, by the way. Yeah. So it's an athletic school. And if anybody is going to come along eventually and really be a challenger to Clemson, I think North Carolina could be the team that becomes that challenger. So I think they're going to be a good team, and they will be playing good football throughout the season. Again, a team that you're going to want to watch because I think they are going to be a team that could be a good wager partner for you throughout the season.
All right, let's move on to the Big Ten. The Big Ten, I give the Big Ten conference credit. They're starting out with conference games. Ohio State going to go to Minnesota tonight. Minnesota with a good running game. They're going to have to shorten the game. C.J. Stroud, the starting quarterback. In our last 5 minutes here, we'll hit all the conferences and all the conference previews for Friday and Saturday on the Friday football segment during the Make the Money and Run podcast tomorrow at 1 Eastern on Facebook and YouTube or anywhere you download and subscribe your podcast. Ohio State, 2 touchdowns at Minnesota. CJ Stroud, the rookie quarterback. You're a little leery laying 14, Charlie?
Yeah. Whenever you got a new quarterback, I'm worried about that. I don't have anything against him, but yeah, I'd be a little worried about that. Whenever you got a brand new quarterback, I'm a wait and see guy, and this game is on the road, so this game won't be a play for me. You got a new quarterback, and I've been hearing a little rumbling about whether from a lot of the experts and guys that I like, that they're a little soft on this guy. So I want to see him one game. And Minnesota's not a bad program. I mean, they're not a premier program in the Big Ten right now, but they're not a bad program. I want to see how he performs before I put any cash down on the Buckeyes right now.
All right, last game today. We've got one more game to talk about today. Boise State out of the Mountain West. They're going to host UCF, a school I'm very familiar with, having worked there 2 different times. Central Florida, great program they had. They had Scott Frost there for a couple of years now. They've really built it up a little bit. Charlie, Boise State, 6.5-point underdog. Seems to be a lot. And actually the lean is toward Boise State at minus 115. 67.5 the total. We know UCF can score. Not sure how Boise State's going to come out this year, considering how they've been the last few years offensively. But UCF and Boise State, Charlie.
Well, I'll tell you, I'd be real tempted to throw a little money at Boise. I don't know that I throw a whole lot of units, but I think that's some disrespect. I mean, I know they're going on the road, and I know the weather's not been great down there, and the turf's probably going to be wet. And everything else, but Boise's got those big boys that eat beef, and I know UCF's kind of the darling of the Southeast, and everybody really likes them, but Boise tends to not get the respect that they deserve, and I got to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Boise come out of there with a win.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm actually looking at that. I'll have all my football picks later at 6 Eastern online. You can check that out as well too. We'll have the updates on any of the things that we did not talk about on the podcast as well. All right, the Make the Money and Run podcast, the world famous yet unsponsored pick segment coming up right now as we go into the last part of the show here. Again, catch us at 1 Eastern tomorrow. We'll have all the full breakdown of college football, talk a little NFL. Of course, we'll keep up on the Major League Baseball races going on in our last 2 minutes here. Charlie, go ahead with your picks today.
Okay, well, I got to make all my picks now because I'm going to be tied up later this afternoon. Starting off in baseball, Pittsburgh versus Chicago. Man, I'm taking the Cubs as a favorite. That scares me. I'm taking the Cubs minus 165. We talked about the Indians and how we like what they're doing. I'm taking Cleveland minus 115 against the Royals. And then in football tonight, I'm taking Eastern Washington. That's right. I'm taking a football championship series team +1 versus UNLV. UNLV, that's a football program in trouble. And then I'm taking BYU minus 12.5 versus Arizona.
Oh, yeah. We forgot to mention that game, BYU, Arizona. That tonight or tomorrow?
I thought it was tonight.
Let's find out. It is tomorrow. All right. Well, we'll have Charlie. Actually, it's Saturday, so we'll have Charlie's pick again for BYU.
Man.
Arizona. That's all right. You're fired up on BYU. That's all right. All right. Am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? Baseball early picks. I'll have all my football picks by 6 Eastern online. But am I going to do it? Am I going to do it based on how everything's going in the National League West? Yes, I am going to do it. Milwaukee going up against the Giants on YouTube. 4-game sweep, +171. Eric Lauer on the mound versus Logan Webb. I love Logan Webb. He's been their best pitcher. Right now, the Giants on a streak, and usually if you're on a 4-game streak and you're playing a division leader, you're probably going to lose the 4th game today. And I haven't seen the lineup yet, but Eric Lauer, very good pitcher for the Brewers. He's not in the Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff area, but Milwaukee +171. All right, that's going to do it for us. See you tomorrow at 1 Eastern, everybody. Take care.